Welcome to the Get Hired in Finland podcast. We have a wonderful guest today, Vera. Vera, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Would you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. That sounds like an interview, and I've been prepared for that part. I have been living in Finland for 15 years. I think that's important part why you should continue listening to this podcast, because I've been studying and working here. In the meantime, while in Finland, I also managed to relocate to other countries. I've lived in Cyprus for 1.5 years, and I also did my exchange in Berlin. So multiple relocation experiences. And in Finland, I completed 2 degrees. My first degree is from linguistics from Classical University, University of Helsinki, and my second degree is from University of Applied Sciences, and I graduated as Bachelor's of Business Administration. Currently, I work as HR business partner at Suunto, and maybe I can tell you later what means HR business partner. I'm not sure if everyone knows that. In my free time, I also contribute to community. We have HR community Helsinki, so I'm helping to build that one. And professionally speaking, before my current role, I worked in startup, which was scaling at the time, and it grew from 10 people to 60 during my time, and I participated quite a lot in recruitment, but not only in that, but in building people function there.
So you also hired lots of people.
Yes, more or less all the people from 10 to 60, of course not 100%, but a lot. And we did hire people from abroad, so we also relocated people to Finland.
Beautiful. And you mentioned it already. I realize there is a misconception between job seekers in Finland on who is an HR and HR manager or professional or business partner. And is it the same as a talent acquisition specialist or a recruiter?
It's a good question. I think when I was considering my HR career and career paths, I studied that question a lot, and it's very different. So when people say recruiter, I think they usually refer to external agent or external consultant whose job is to close open roles. So they're external partner who get a task. For example, you need to hire marketing manager. They get job specs and then they fill the role. They are sometimes compensated based on success or another way. It depends on their own preferences. And talent acquisition partner, on the other hand, it's mostly in-house resource, and it's much broader than recruiter. They participate in more strategic decisions. They also have to make sure that they understand where talent is for future purposes, what kind of talent company might need. So based on that knowledge and data, they can also develop employer brand, build pipelines, and work, of course, with hiring managers to improve hiring process in the company. And then if we speak about HR, so it depends on the company structure. Sometimes talent function is within HR. Sometimes they are considered to be separate within the company. Uh, so it is quite different, as you can imagine. If they can be even separate functions, HR usually support current employees from the moment of signing the contract until offboarding, and it includes a lot of things from onboarding to offboarding and development. Um, and there are, of course, then different HR types. For example, about HR business partner role, it's more strategic. You are supporting usually one or two departments. For example, you can support marketing and sales. So you participate in any internal people related process for that function. And of course, as all other business partners, you work together, building processes in the company. There can be a HR specialist, for example, who mostly, I think, support administrative tasks. Uh, there can be payroll specialist, for example, who is also part of HR team, but they help you to get paid at the end of the month. So quite a lot of different tasks, different roles. HR, if you see a person working in HR, doesn't necessarily mean that they work in recruitment, but it might mean that they do support somehow recruitment process.
Mhm.
Hope it answered the question.
I got a little bit more confused than I was before. Now, let's try to get from high level to very, very simple terms. If I'm an international in Finland and I want to get hired by a big international company, let's take Kone. Um, is it wise to write to an HR professional at Kone asking about hiring process? Or who is the right person then taking care of recruitment in such a big company?
I think winning strategy would be to contact the person who are mentioned in the job ad, but it's not always the case, of course. Uh, but I think the safest option is to contact talent acquisition partner if there are those in the company, but I think in Kone they are. If it's possible that you can check their profiles and see which function they are hiring for. For example, you are searching for a job in marketing, you check Kone talent acquisition partners, you check their profiles. Usually they would write, I'm talent acquisition partner for engineering. So you better contact someone else. I think that would be approach. Of course, another way to, if there are no open roles, but you still really really want to work for that company, I would recommend to contact the people who are already doing whatever you would like to do, or potential hiring manager if they're especially if they are not person who is doing that what you would like to do. That's your business case, that you can tell them that okay, I can do that, and then contact hiring manager. I understand that it's easiest solution to contact HR, uh, but in major cases, I would say that HR wouldn't be able to help you because they're not fully responsible for hiring decision making. They cannot create a role for you, even though they can see that you are exceptional.
Amazing. I love what I hear. And if to sum it up, if I understand correctly, if it's a big company, most likely HR function is just to take care of a person after he or she joins a company. Salaries, growth, paperwork, and everything. And if it is a small company or a startup, it can be that an HR professional is also taking care of recruitment. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And a safe bet would be to contact a talent acquisition professional specialist partner.
I would say yes, that would be the safest if you can find those in the company.
I love it. Thank you a lot. And can we also cover, based on your experience, you've been living in Finland for 15 years and working for many companies, what are the stages of recruitment usually happening in Finland?
Sure. It's quite structured process, hopefully. Of course, not everywhere. If the company is in the very early stage, that might differ from my answer, but how I see it usually, there is a recruitment need, which can be either replacement of leaving employee, either adding resources because it's just too much of the same task, either creating some kind of new task or function within the company. And after that, after the need is identified, their internal talks about that, between hiring manager, between HR, a team perhaps, depending of course of the need, then where they discuss the scope of the role, the budget, must haves, nice haves, practicalities when the person needs to start, and so on. I would like to say that there's so much of freedom and a lot of time, but usually it's not. Usually hiring need is quite emergent. And after that job ad is published in the channels which company use, and most probably it is in LinkedIn. Some companies do put the deadline, for example, 2 weeks, 1 month. I think in Finland, quite a lot of companies still do that, especially the bigger ones. But other companies don't. They're usually right there that we are reviewing applications on ongoing basis, and you can trust that they actually do that. So don't wait. You have to apply pretty quickly to make sure you jump on that train. And job ad is created, published, depending if there is deadline or not. First screen of applications can be after deadline, can be already within application time. Depends on the internal processes who screens those. Can be hiring manager, can be a talent person. Then usually it's followed by first interview. Again, can be HR, can be hiring manager, can be both. Usually there is a second interview, depending, of course, who participated in first. It can be colleagues as well, or an expert, or the person, for example, who is leaving the company, whose job you are going to take when you join. After that, or before that, some companies do implement some practical tasks. And as the last stage, there might be meet the team, or visit the office, something more informal, something that you can both understand that if chemistry match and magic happen, and if everything goes well, then it's then an offer.
Mhm. Um, when a job is being published, people start applying for a job. And imagine you have received 200, 300 applications per one job, and you might have several jobs open. How do you decide who should be invited to an interview and who not?
Yes, that's interesting question. So when we discuss about the role, usually there are few key points which are absolutely must-haves, which hiring manager or the team would not give up. So of course, as a talent person, you know those, and you scan applications wearing those glasses, looking for those core competences which you absolutely cannot not have. And but imagine, okay, out of those 200, 100 people do have those competences. Then other factors which matter are, for example, industry. If the person had the same industry from where we are operating, if it's a team lead position, especially, might be a team size. For example, if the person led team of 5, and we have exactly team of 5 with the same setup, so it gives bonus points. Mm, what else? There was something else. Company size. Yes. For example, if it's a startup we are hiring for, it is a huge advantage if the person, for example, worked for a smaller company, because it requires a bit different set of skills. And then, as the last stage, there are practicalities. There are, of course, budgets. There are salary expectations, which we have to consider. There is a location sometimes. So those things matter. And as for me, I do always read the cover letter, and I have to say, and I think all people who are involved in recruitment say that it's important you write them and you show your motivation, you can maybe not get bonus points from the previous what I mentioned, but you can really stand out by your motivation and your match with the company. And another practical tip I always share with whoever is ready to listen to me: uh, make your application as transparent as possible. Put yourself in the recruiter shoes and think what they can have questions about. For example, if you are applying for the role in Helsinki, you are living in Turku. Express it in some place that I am willing to relocate. It will take me no time to relocate. I know the housing market. I have friends who will support me. It might sound very simple, but those can be really things which can lead to the decision to invite or not. So try to make sure that you answer all the questions before they are even asked.
You've covered you mentioned the cover letter part. Do you first review CVs or cover letters?
CV first.
And then if it's not a rejection, you go to a cover letter.
I usually still read it. I've been myself in the job applicant for quite a lot of time, so I know how much effort it takes. So I want to give this time back to the candidate, so I always read the cover letter. But I haven't been in the position where I had 10 open jobs with 200 applications that I didn't have time for it. Recruitment was always part of my job, not my main responsibility. So I always made sure that I have time to at least to glance through the cover letters.
Has it ever happened to you that a CV was not as strong, but a cover letter was so interesting that you decided to invite a person to an interview?
I can't remember exact cases, but I am sure that there have been.
That's a relief for those people who struggle to write cover letters or do not want to write the cover letters or spend a lot of time writing a cover letter. I also have a question that at the beginning you mentioned that um, that you have criteria from a hiring manager or a hiring team. What is an absolute must to have in a job? And this is one of the ways to scan through all the applications. These requirements, are they always written in a job description, or can it be something that is not written, but you know about it?
Well, I think most of the time those are the hard skills and they are written. So this is the first level, what I said we screen for must-haves. But the second level, which is the industry, team size, company size, those are perhaps which are not written in the job ad. But they're
Mhm.
important then if you have to filter more.
I understand. You also mentioned at the beginning that you used to hire from abroad. Could we talk a little bit about that? Because I know that many people apply from abroad, even hundreds and hundreds per job. When do companies hire from outside of Finland? And when people applying from outside have zero chances?
I can't speak for all the companies, but from what I've seen, if there are specific skill which we need and we don't have those in Finland, then yes, we go global. If I think about other companies, it might be also, for example, language or knowing the market. For example, I have a company and I plan to expand to Japan. So that would make sense for me to hire someone from Japan, operating in the same industry, knowing the language, knowing the local culture and everything to come to Finland and do that. Um, but mostly those are technical experiences, which, for example, Finland, unfortunately, at the moment cannot offer. And zero chances, I really don't like to speak about zero chances. Um, but Finnish market now, as we all know, has quite a lot of highly educated professionals. University graduate every year, so some more maybe generic roles, it's or generic or non-technical, it's much harder to hire from abroad, to find justification within the company also, because it requires cost, it requires perhaps more time or those practicalities.
What happens if a company wants to hire someone from Japan? How is it different from hiring someone from Tampere or Turku?
um, I have to say, in Finland, it's quite easy compared to other countries. From what I've heard, for example, other European countries or non-European countries, there are quite a lot of costs involved in that. Luckily for us, uh, companies don't have to pay a lot if they want to hire from abroad. If it's a specialist role, then it's pretty straightforward. If person needs a resident permit, they just apply from the country of their residence, and then we support here the process, and then they get permit, then they come. Another thing, what company does for the person who relocates, do they support relocation? If yes, then of course we need to take those costs into consideration. Does this person have any commitments? Is it the family or previous job? For example, in Europe, usually notice period is 3 months, so that we have to think about here. So it can be more costly, it can be more lengthy.
Okay,
I,
I
I think I
understood.
think I think those are main things.
Yeah, thank you for explaining those. Coming back to the process of applying and CVs that you receive, what are some red flags in the CV that makes you skip a candidate, let's say immediately?
Again, perhaps not immediately. It's the same as for zero chances. But what I've learned myself as the candidate many years ago, uh, please do the application in the language the job ad is on. You will be surprised how many people do otherwise. The thing is that, for example, the job ad is in English and you really want to show your Finnish skills and you send it in Finnish, but recruiter might not even speak Finnish. It can really backfire, and at the same time, it does show kind of disrespect because if I post it in English, so I expect application in English, even though I can speak Finnish or French or whatever. I do this process in English. There might be hiring manager who is not Finnish speaker or whatever. So there is always particular reason why recruitment process is in particular language. So that's kind of first red flag. And another one, which is wider, of course, it's irrelevance of the application and that it's nowhere explained why do you apply, and perhaps you have the skills, you might have acquired them through hobbies or university projects, but you should shout about it somewhere if it's not that visible. So perhaps those two things are immediate red flags.
Hmm. If there are 200 applications, how many of those are irrelevant?
Quite a lot. um, it depends on the role, of course, but I would say 50%.
Wow, that's a lot. Um,
Yeah.
Incredible, because job seekers are afraid about high numbers of applicants. But if you really have a look into those, and 50% are not really related to the job. Interesting, very, very interesting thought. And when you applied for jobs yourself, how you got hired, how did you make sure that your CV is being noticed?
um, I think my gratitude also goes to you, Lydia, and to Rina. I of course, I knew how to write a CV. I know I have to tailor it, and I know I have to bring my personality and motivational letter. And I thought I did it. But then I participated in your workshop. It's not paid ad, by the way, but it gave me a really good structure, and I started to spend perhaps more time on every CV. But with every CV, it became less time because I had a structure. I created the system and I just pick up the words and I put them there, and I try to put myself in the recruiter shoes and just tell them what they want to hear. And try to find time for myself when I'm at my best creativity, so I can write a cover letter showing who I am and catching the attention.
By the way, I didn't even know that you attended one of the
Yeah.
workshops before. Good to know. Good to know. Those are the good ones. We receive many messages from people saying, "Oh, I got an interview or I got a job after." Yeah. And after the screening process, people are invited to an interview. And I'm myself preparing people for interviews and having mock sessions. So I understand very well how it might feel from your end. And what are some of the mistakes that people often make when they're interviewing with a company, especially from an international professional perspective?
I I don't see a huge difference or any particular mistakes that international do in the interview, or people in general. I would say perhaps about general mistakes is not answering question directly. I That's the also advice I give to everyone who is ready to listen. Be precise, be concrete. No one has a lot of time and no one wants to double guess. And that's the advice I also had to give myself, because I also tended to go into very long answers, and I thought, okay, everyone is very interested, but no. Imagine person is taking notes on the other side, so just give it note friendly format, and obviously prepare yourself before, check what you can bring from the job ad to whatever story you're going to tell, and practice with the AI. Put the job ad there, go through, ask AI to ask you questions, and then prepare yourself. And this preparation always works.
Mhm.
And I did, when I prepared for my own interviews. Luckily, I'm not in mental hospital now, because I was sitting and talking with myself. I wrote down the questions and I just replied many times.
Amazing. You said in a note-friendly way. Could you explain how to do it?
Mm, for example, think from interviewer perspective. What would be the best answer you can give them, so they can write one sentence which could be a winning thing for hiring manager? Because the process goes that you are giving the interview, the talent person is writing down the notes, and usually they interview you and then they have a conversation with hiring manager going through the notes, because hiring manager don't know you usually, so those words are what matters. So make sure that you build the case.
Do you think we could give an example?
Okay, you ask me, for example, the first question in interview, you asked me to tell about myself. And even today, when we spoke about it, I could start telling you that I live there, I like walking, or I do running in my free time, but no one cares about that in this setting. So my introduction was based on, okay, how many years I live in Finland. So you if you're still here, you're still listening, and how many maybe jobs I've done and what I'm currently doing. So that's for this context. If it's an interview, you tell about your professional career, but also not starting from beginning and explaining 15 years, something what's relevant and what is easy to remember.
I got it. We also got one question that is a bit specific, but very interesting to hear your answer. How to explain that you were fired from your previous job? For example, not let go, not laid off, but fired. What is a good way in explaining it in an interview?
Yeah, it's definitely tough thing. I think it's never easy to reply those questions, even if it's not about being fired. Even if you, for example, resigned yourself or you changed the company or you are planning to change the company. I think those questions are really difficult to answer. Uh, what I would do, I would be transparent and honest, and their answer should be as short as possible, because we don't want to give any information which can be interpreted in different ways. So less information you give, less chances it's to be interpreted in the way we don't want. I would also avoid being emotional. I understand this is always emotional experience, and you're still going through these feelings, but uh, I would avoid blaming your supervisor or the company or whoever was involved in the process. I would suggest you just tell the objective reason for that, um, which you was given when you were fired, and your perspective, perhaps shortly also, as unemotional as it can be, and the most importantly, probably what you've learned and how you are planning to use this knowledge later on. I think honesty is really important, because if you are not honest, it can be seen very quickly. And as for me, the main purpose usually of recruitment process is to build trust. You're building trust with every message you send, with every interaction with recruiter, not only during the interview but before that, how you reply to messages, how quick you are, how receptive you are. So trust is something which is very difficult to gain. So during those tricky questions, please be honest and transparent, and invite to ask questions, I think.
Do you have a favorite interview question or questions, things you always like to ask?
Mm. I think I have one question, which it's not my invention, by the way. I got it from my colleague. And the question is that, imagine you were hired to this company and you've left the company before 6 months. What could be a reason?
Wow. What are you looking for in this answer?
About what motivates person and what could be a critical, absolute, unacceptable thing.
If I would answer to that saying that I wouldn't stand bullying, then if this is the case, when I join a company and I figure out that in my department there is a this way of communicating when someone is being put down all the time, then I would leave, unfortunately. Is this an appropriate answer?
Of course, of course it is. And I think there was never an answer which I was like, oh no, we shouldn't hire this person. But it helps you also to understand, would they, for example, fit the team? Would they fit the hiring manager? Of course, there are quite a lot of interactions during the whole recruitment process, which help you to estimate this much. But this question, I think, shows what's important for the person. And obviously, I think bullying is something that no one or very few of us would stand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. If I would say that I don't like my manager to stand behind me and every moment ask what I'm doing. I want to be trusted as a professional. And you know that a manager is this type of a manager, so it would be not a good fit for the team, right?
It gives you a chance also as a people professional to coach hiring managers saying, okay, see, this is the really much for the role and we really like the person, but so you know that this person is not a type which likes to be micromanaged. Of course, I think micromanagers rarely acknowledge in themselves, okay, I'm a micromanager, this is my favorite thing to do. Uh, but you can already from beginning prepare hiring manager that that's not perhaps the way to deal with this potential employee.
Interesting. So many thoughts in my mind, but I would like now to focus on a question about the current job market in Finland. How do you see it? Did you notice any changes in your own work, for example?
Um, well, I think I know as much information as everyone else, and I would like to have a magic ability to say, okay, I do like this, and tomorrow we don't have unemployment anymore. But that's not the case. Of course, there is. I always try to base on the economic theory, thinking that the cycle always passes and there are four stages. And if we are hitting the rock bottom now, soon is the time for expansion. So there is, of course, positive thoughts that at some point recession should end and then it should be better. What I wanted to share more on the positive side is situation from when I came to Finland 15 years ago to now. I'm always super happy that it has changed so much. Maybe it's not that rapid as in other European countries or whatever, but the change is present. I see it when I came 15 years ago. I think internationals mostly did not even consider any other type of careers than, for example, that would require your language. For example, you come from um, Spain, and then you know that you can only be employed in the companies which are exporting to Spain, where you can benefit from your language. But there were not so many other opportunities, and they are now. Uh, Companies are much more open, and job ads are not mostly in English, but a lot of them are in English. And I think, Lydia, you published a list of, what was it, 400 companies hiring internationals. And I think that's a huge number for Finland. And it will just change to better because there are no other options. So if you're considering that, okay, market conditions are bad, should I even try? It's always better to focus on what you can control rather than what you cannot. A situation will change at some point, but you should really use this time right here, right now to do small steps or big steps or whatever feels good.
I love it. Feels like we all have hope.
I hope we do have hope.
We hope that we all have hope. Thank you a lot for today. It was very, very lovely talking to you.
Thank you for having me. It was really interesting, and I hope those advices were useful. Thank you.